said many times, today is Mother's Day, and I want to lift up all those who exhibit and live into the traits we often assign to mothers. People of every gender who give birth or caretake, especially the emotional content of caring, cuddling and fixing boo-boos, and a special call out to those who mother children who were born by others, children who also need loving care. If you mother in any of these ways, just wave your hand so we can see you. Be visible. Thanks for being here today. And if this is a hard day for you, if your mom disappointed or hurt you in ways that continue to linger on in your life, or maybe she's passed and you miss her today, I see you too. I stand beside you. All of those feelings are okay in this holy place. There are many ways to mother outside the traditional meaning, those who give birth to organizations, movements, even ideas. And I like to consider all these when I think about Mother's Day. If you're a maker, you're a mother, as far as I'm concerned, and I mean that in a good way. And happy anniversary to Unitarian Universalism. Did you know that? Yes, I get a point for good UU learning. The Unitarians and the Universalists had contemplated a merger for nearly 100 years before they finally came together on this date in 1960. It was a birth, sure as any other, so a special happy Mother's Day to all of us. It is a good thing we have a lot of flowers. Take a deep breath. I can smell them. I hope you're not allergic. This is indeed my first Flower Communion Sunday. According to the UUA website, and I'm going to borrow extensively from what they said, Flower Communion is an annual ritual that celebrates beauty, human uniqueness, diversity, and community. You know, in most other religious communities, ritual means a fixed rite, order, form, a way we do things. But that doesn't seem to be the case for all of you. So I've been reassured I can't really do it wrong. Whew. As the story goes, it all started by Norbert Chopik. He was raised Catholic, was an altar boy. He became a Baptist minister and then a Unitarian. He wrote in 1919, "I can't be a Baptist anymore, even in compromise. The fire of new desires, new worlds is burning inside of me." He was a visionary minister with a church ahead of its time, a bold church, a church thinking beyond its own doors, beyond what any thought was possible or certainly proper. It was a church that was willing to take risks, to make tough decisions, to bear disappointment, to build a new way. And a part of that was building this ritual for a church that was becoming more and more diverse in faiths and people of no faith. He wanted a way to bring people together, something shared, a ritual, kind of like communion, but not communion, that might help bind them together. And this ceremony, Flower Communion, was born. It was a nod to a kind of pluralism. It's Pluralism Month. A kind of pluralism that he welcomed. Are you with me so far? I said that for Jack. Martin Luther King said that Sunday is the most segregated day in the United States, and it is indeed. We don't choose our coworkers. We don't choose those we go to school with. We do choose our spiritual communities. And we often choose spiritual communities for the people we meet there. And for the most part, we often choose places that bring the comfort of people who are largely like ourselves. It's not that we aren't different, it's just that we're not that different. Our differences are within the realm of what we find tolerably familiar. In history, one of the least tolerable differences of all is that of creed. In the history of Christianity, for example, is one church split after one church split after another church split after double splits and triple splits. Even the UU movement was formed from a split and then a reunion over theological disagreements. For Unitarians, the idea that the Trinity just didn't make sense, And for the Universalists, the idea that God would send people to hell was simply intolerable. Each formed their own gathering of like-minded people, but then came together and merged. I'm thankful for that. Today, at least from my limited perspective, UU is pluralistic in several ways. Sharing space with those who don't share the same creed is still radical. Hooray for you. It's still not that pluralistic. We struggle to truly catch a vision, struggle with if we really want true pluralism, because frankly, it takes a lot of work and willingness and commitment to share space with those who are truly different than we are. And to let that difference be good and right and to work things through, well, it requires us to make room in a particular kind of way, a way that presents a constant tension and the ability to call that tension good, a way to consider that tension an invitation instead of an offense. Last Sunday, Tovis and I invited a moment to bring some more internal kinds of tensions forward. We held a sacred space for people to let go of things that have happened in the past, that they knew they needed to let go of, to release, in order to clear a path forward in our transition. Hurts, confusions, injuries. We offered it because, while it's possible to look forward while anchored to the past, it's kind of hard to get far. And one can't look back and forward at the same time. Or since it's Flower Communion Sunday, looking back at your failed or picked crops does not get the field cleared or ready for the next harvest, or even better, invites us to focus on the sprouts of new things and how they're doing. At the end, somebody voiced a great question. They said, unsettled, and this is not an exact quote, that they were confused. Some of the stories conflicted, and it was a cry for the whole picture, the whole truth. The reality of different conflicting stories about the same thing is that they just are. They're formed because fact is filtered through our own lens, and if two people can disagree, and we all know two people can disagree, and be sure that they're absolutely right, is it surprising that it happens in a larger way in community? Some of these stories we choose to believe are built from a fully informed part of the story. Some are much less informed or in conjecture, and some are full-on rumor. And you know the story about rumors in that telephone game. Now, I believe there are some big T truths, like love should rule. But we should never confuse that with small T truths, like the ones we tell ourselves about this event or another one. We all see life our own way, and that means we often do not see the same thing. Sometimes we really do just make things up. When it comes to pastoral and other staff transitions, they're hard. What seems just to one might seem unjust to others. And I've said this before, and it bears repeating. How we're known is very contextual. How I appear to you on Sunday might be different than the way my staff sees me on Tuesday. My wife, well, she sees me in a completely different way than any of you. She knows all about my strengths and weaknesses and tells me about them. But you know, this is true for all of us, right? Some of you read in the transition blog a month ago that Tovis and I have decided not to seek a more permanent minister's role at UUSM, and we'll leave when our contracts end and your new minister arrives. And we both have our own reasons, but many of you didn't read the blog and have been spreading your own rumors. Contrary to some of the rumors, none of the reasons we are leaving have anything to do with UUSM. We love you. We're enjoying our time together. I told you from the first sermon that I don't intend to be a settled minister again. I want to specialize in intentional, interim, transitional ministries because I love this stuff. Later, Tovis and I will do a video and she can tell you her reasons to move along with love. Nothing is wrong. Change can be normal, good, even expected, even if it's hard. We hope for a healthy leaving. and that all can let go with peace and with grace, wishing one another peace and well-being. This week, I hope you read the newsletter too from the transition team and the board's plan to search for your next professional ministry. I know you're busy. Please, just read that part. So we won't agree about every detail of the past or even the present, because the truth is there are rumors that sound right. Even those who are involved will see it differently, often with fervor and integrity of their self. And we do need to accept that there are true stories that conflict. And we need to release the past and grab on to the new that's coming our way. And while we do, we can get more comfortable with the whole idea that stories conflict to be true, and this pluralism in small form can count as practice for the larger form. Someday, we can get comfortable with other larger points of view that make us uncomfortable, and welcome that discomfort as an invitation to listen more deeply, to not insist on our own way, especially for those of us who are totally accustomed to getting our own way, and embracing the idea that giving way, making room, is what lets pluralism in. And it's a big ask, I know. Anyway, in 1942, Čapek was arrested by the Gestapo and sent to the Dachau concentration camp. The faith he practiced dared him to question, and he dared to listen to foreign broadcasts that decried what was unfolding at that time. Even in starvation and in torture, he held a flower communion ceremony with his fellow prisoners, not all Unitarian, finding whatever flowers they could among the weeds of the camp. They testified to a beauty that was larger than themselves and a love that they believed would outlive them. This is an advanced spiritual practice that I invite all of you to think about. To claim beauty even in the weeds of things, even in the midst of death, to notice it. It's a thought-provoking thing. And then the Nazis killed Norbert Čapek. He never left. So what part of the story do you want to grab on today? Is it the testimony of resistance that can live into each of us when evil threatens? Is it an affirmation of beauty in the core of each of us that cannot die? Are there times we come to appreciate the flowers among the weeds? I meant to bring a dandelion and hold it up, but I forgot. Oh, did you bring a dandelion?
She is a dandelion.
The dandelion's right there. Thank you. Or perhaps we can simply appreciate the first purpose, to bring us together out of many, one. Maybe all these things are maybe different from each of us. That's okay. We're Unitarians. It's pluralism month. It's supposed to be okay to be different in our shared humanity. In a moment, not yet, I'm going to ask you each to find and hold a flower, even if you didn't bring a flower. I promise we have plenty. I invite you to be careful of one another, because there's many of us and we're going to be moving around. And I invite you to pay attention, and anyone that has a little less mobility and maybe needs to stay seated for safety or because they need to stay seated, I invite you to get them a flower as well. And then if you're one of those who are standing, I invite you to find a place to stand. There's room over here, there's room up here. Just find a place to stand. Don't go back to your seat. And let's look at our flowers in silence for a few moments. And imagine who might have brought it, or who might have made it come to be, and how that might